Date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show every day, covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide. Reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
You know, I've been at parties where, I had just left the party and, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, I heard that, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how
and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show, but it's not Bill Press in the seat today. It's actually Charles Ellison. I'm sitting in for the great Bill Press, filling some big shoes, and it is a pleasure to be here. Charles Ellison, I'm your guest host, just leading you through the next few hours. I got my man Peter Ogburn here. How
Charles,
you doing, man?
It's good to see you, buddy.
It's good
Thank you so much for coming in.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Really,
man.
Really, it's always exciting. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, it'll be exciting.
And we got a lot of stuff going on. Got so much to talk about. We are live on Free Speech TV and Talker. Just TAWKR TV. So it's not Talker, it's Talker.
That's how we spell Talker now.
That's right,
TAWKR.
Yeah, it's the Boston way of saying it.
Talker.
Yeah, Talker. Yeah, and spelling it. You're also you can watch us on DirecTV and Dish, and go to YouTube.com TawkrTV.
That's it.
And we're at BP Show, so you can tweet us at BP Show. Also, you can tweet me directly at Ellison Report. You can also go to ellisonreport.com for more information. I happen to be the contributing editor for theroot.com. It's a great publication. Check it out. So I talk about politics and public policy and all that great stuff, all the latest news and events and folks that are in them. Also, I'm the Washington correspondent for the Philadelphia Tribune, and lately I've been doing some stuff with The Hill. It's been a lot of fun, actually, with The Hill. Yeah, I've been enjoying it.
Good folks over there at The Hill.
Very good folks at The Hill. In fact, we've got a writer from The Hill.
Yes.
Yeah, staff
Julian
writer.
Hattem's coming in.
Julian Hattem. I follow Julian quite a bit, actually, because I love his takes on. Yeah, he's a smart dude. Always talking about technology, tech. I'm sure we're going to be talking about emails later
indeed.
on.
You know it.
The wonderful world of emails.
Here's the thing. You got to stay away from Bob Cusack, though.
Stay away. Yeah, Bob, right.
He's
right.
Dangerous guy.
He's a dangerous guy.
Watch out now. Bob might bust through the door with like an AK-47 dressed up like Batman. No, I shouldn't go there. I don't go there. Sorry, Bob. Anyway, that's wrong. Excuse me for all my good friends out there in Denver and Aurora. But got a lot of things we got to talk about. Got my man Jamie Benson on the board of steel, getting it done. Thanks so much, Jamie.
Good morning, sir.
Helping us out here. Ray Rogers, also the illustrious Ray. She's going to be screening calls. And my man Cyprian Bolding, he's the video operator. So I have to look into that camera and give Sip a big up.
He's the one that's making you look so good today.
Yeah, I hope I do. So because I know it's early in the morning, so I might have all these bags under my eyes. So I'm not looking my best today. So maybe my wife differs. I hope she does, man. I hope she does. So we got a lot going on here in the Bill Press Show. BillPressShow.com, obviously, live on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. I can't stress how much good stuff and great folks we got coming up. We got the weekend legal correspondent for CNN, Avery Friedman. My good old friend, he's actually a high school buddy of mine, Michael Rubin. We went to high school together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Former Pentagon official, also American Enterprise Institute fellow.
Guy.
Smart guy. We actually wrestled together. We were on a wrestling team together, by the way.
I got questions for him.
Disclaimer.
I want to find out who won.
Right.
I'm going to ask him.
Yeah, I used to get my butt kicked. But Rubin's a big guy. He's actually pretty tough. And also my good friend Tracey Ross with the Center for American Progress. She's going to be going to talk about environmental racism. I interviewed her earlier this week for a piece that I wrote in The Root about environmental racism. Kind of went a little viral. So Tracey Ross had some really good thoughts with that. And then we got Julian Hattem, of course, later on. And then we have you, the caller. So the audience, the listener, please call in. We've got like a good, almost an hour, right? About like 50 minutes.
We got a long way to go, yeah.
Long way to go. So you can all call in. Call in to 866-55-PRESS. Or 866, let me translate that for you, 866-557-7377. That's 866-557-7377. Or hit us up at BP Show. I'm at Ellison Report. And then check us out, BillPressShow.com. Got a lot coming up, but first this.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news here, Charles. You got an iPhone, right?
I've got an iPhone, that's right.
All right. You got apps on your iPhone,
I've
right?
got all kinds of apps.
All right. Well, ComScore just put out a report. I'm the worst. I got apps on apps on apps. I don't know how many pages I got, but it's so many.
Yeah.
I think I just went through like 10 pages.
Right. Just right.
Well, ComScore put out a list. They took a look at the most downloaded, most popular mobile apps on your phone.
Okay, you got some.
Any guess on number one?
Ashley Madison.
That's a fantastic guess. And a timely one.
I was just saying.
Yeah, Ashley Madison, I'm sorry, not even in the top 25, at least from those who will admit that they have it.
Okay.
Number one by a lot is Facebook. Facebook, 125.7 million downloads.
Wow.
Right behind that.
I don't have the Facebook app.
Really?
I
have
thought
a Facebook page.
I thought Facebook was going out of style. I thought the teens had abandoned it.
It's not. Well, you know what? But their parents.
That's right.
Look at the demographics of Twitter to Facebook. Facebook. Yeah, it's.
I got Facebook.
It's us. We're the parents now.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the young cats, our kids went over to Twitter. Yeah. But now we're getting over to Twitter, so now the kids are like,
they're gonna find something.
I'm
else.
over to Snapchat.
They'll find
and
something.
Instagram.
Yeah, they'll find something else. Number two on the list, by the way, is YouTube with 98.9. So that's not even close.
Oh, wow.
But number one.
I can see that.
Oddly enough, number three, Facebook Messenger. Facebook has got the mobile app thing on lock.
Are you down with FB?
I guess so. Google Search, Google Play, and Google Maps are also right after those. So interesting stuff.
Getting it done.
Yeah, right? Sometimes the stories just write themselves, and I'm going to present this without comment. I'm going to read the headline directly from the AP. Tulsa, Oklahoma, a man guarding a small-town Oklahoma gun range and survivalist shop that declared itself a Muslim-free business dropped his weapon and accidentally shot himself.
Ooh.
He's going to be fine. He's not dead.
Okay.
But this is clearly Darwin at work.
We can crack one.
Yeah. We're absolutely going to crack on this guy. He dropped his gun. Bullet struck him in the arm. Now, this is a guy who showed up to protect this store. The store said, we are a Muslim-free gun store, and we're not going to allow Muslims to shop here. They got some pushback from locals. And so this guy with the Oath Keepers showed up to stand in front of the store with his gun.
And he owns the gun store, right?
Yeah.
So he's the one that has to like train and license people.
That's the one. That's the one.
That's what that's all about. Please don't start making like explosive devices.
Yeah,
don't do that.
Please don't do that.
Don't sell those, please. Please. Don't do it, man.
And the race for president just got a little more interesting. Hillary Clinton got a very key endorsement yesterday.
Who's that from?
Larry Flint. From Hustler. He put out a letter saying, quote, I'm endorsing Hillary Clinton. If she wins, she'll be able to appoint 2 or 3 judges to the Supreme Court, which could shift the balance.
But that's a lethal endorsement, though. It's
a
dangerous endorsement.
I know.
If I were like a Republican, if I were like Bernie Sanders and everyone else, I'd be like looking at my closet. All right, what did I do?
I would have guessed he'd be a Trump guy.
Dude, they didn't have like Ashley Madison like 30 years ago or so, but I'd be like, Flint, what does he know? You know what I mean? So that's kind of like putting everyone on notice.
That's a good point, though, that Jamie brought up. I would have figured he would be more of a Trump guy. He's a big business guy, big freedom guy.
But he's always like the Clintons, right? Because remember him from like the mid-'90s or from when Bill Clinton was going through all those troubles, like the Monica Lewinsky thing. And remember he's the one that like with Hustle Mag, he put out like all that.
He sunk at least one political career.
He did, yeah. Louisiana Congressman, Livingston, who was like Speaker.
He was going to be
like,
Speaker of the House,
like a split second.
Yeah.
It was like,
and then Larry Flint got him.
Right.
That's funny. There you go.
I don't know. I'm like, how does he do it, Larry Flint? Like, I'm just trying to realize he's still around. He's actually around.
Yeah, he's still around.
Okay,
he's still around. Yeah. There's a great book. I'm blanking on the author's name, but he used to work at Hustler. The name of the book is Prisoner of X.
Okay.
And he writes all about how Larry Flint operates and how he does business. And it is shrewd would be an understatement. I mean, he is a hell of a businessman.
What about his health?
I mean, he's doing okay. He's obviously in the wheelchair. He's still got problems with, you know.
When I think of Larry Flint, I had this visual of like Baron Harkonnen from dude. I don't know. You know what I mean? Just like flying around, and I do. I have this. I don't know what it is. Whenever I think about Larry Flint, man, like, I mean, damn.
Yeah.
So are we still on?
Yeah, we're still on. Let's do it.
I'm sorry about that.
I haven't been shut down yet.
No, we're on. Let's do it.
I'm sorry, I always think about that. You know, and like, I go back to the movie, and I'm just thinking about this. Like, I'm like, Larry Flint? Like, we're actually talking about Larry Flint.
You saw that movie, The People versus Larry Flint, right?
I did.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, Woody Harrelson played
movie.
that part very well.
Yeah, he did. I love that
Captured
movie.
the essence of Larry Flint.
I love that movie.
And what he's doing. So I'm not, you know, I'd be very...
it's hard for me to say Larry Flint. I'm a big fan of Larry Flint, but he's done a lot of stuff for free speech and freedom of the press.
You know what? We've talked about Larry Flint. We have not said one thing about Hustler Magazine.
Yeah.
Like, are you a fan of Hustler Magazine?
Yeah. Give us a call.
Give us a call.
Dear Bill Press Show, I never thought this would happen to me.
866-557-7377. Yeah, if you have any comments about what's been going on lately, what you've been hearing, anything about Larry Flint, or if you know anything about Larry Flint, or if you know anything about the candidates that Larry Flint should know, please call us, 866-557-7377, at BP Show as well. Got pretty much got a full 45 minutes before we head into the 7 o'clock hour. I'm going to talk to our great guest. I'm here with Peter Ogburn. My name is Charles Ellison, by the way.
Let's talk. Let's talk some immigration stuff.
Yes,
because we had an interesting day yesterday.
We did.
We had a very interesting day yesterday with Jeb Bush and Donald Trump holding these sort of dueling town halls on immigration.
Right.
I want to get your take on Donald Trump and his. I mean, you can't deny his success, right? Like, he's having some success in these polls.
I mean, don't we have a clip where Trump is saying, like, it's all about me?
Yeah.
It's all about Trump.
Yeah, it's all about Trump. Yeah.
Let's play it real quick, because I was just thinking about that. Like,
the only thing constant is Trump. I mean, all of them change on the bottom. They're going up and down like yo-yos.
That's a ringtone.
The only thing that's constant is Trump.
I want to download that, right? That's the only thing constant is Trump. Right.
Trump is a fascinating character, man, because, you know, first of all, that clip could not be more wrong. I mean, yes, Trump is constant in that we have him all the time. But, like, Trump is amazing in that he comes at you so quickly with so many lies.
Right.
And so, like, he changes his position just to your face.
Yeah.
He will lie to your face.
Yeah.
And nobody calls him on it because he does it so quickly and so often.
Does it well.
He does it
I mean, he
really
pulls it
well.
off.
He really does.
He's like authoritative.
Are you worried about Trump at all?
I'm not worried about him in terms of him catching the GOP nomination. I, for some reason, I still don't think that that's going to happen. However, I think he'll be a third-party candidate. I think he'll make a perfect third-party candidate. I think that that's kind of the plan.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, someone like Hillary Clinton at this point, at this stage, benefits from that. Because I just don't see, you know, the Republican establishment is still having issues trying to embrace him, trying to, you know, sort of embrace the essence of Trump. Yeah. So I'm just not seeing it yet. But it's still too early to tell.
What I can't figure out is what it's going to be that actually catches him, right?
Right.
Because nothing stuck so far. But
you know what?
I'm sure something will. I just don't know.
Here's what's ironic about this is that Trump is actually playing a chapter from the Barack Obama playbook.
Yeah.
Because this is what made like Obama so successful in 2008. It's like his life was already an open book. It literally was an open book because he like wrote his, you know, these biographies about like what he did. And, you know, he put all this stuff out there. He's like, yeah, you know, I smoked pot, you know, did a little cocaine. You know, I had this period in my life where I was like Yoda. I didn't talk to anyone. I just stayed in a room and just kept to myself. I was a recluse. And then, you know, he just put all that information out there so that nothing would surprise anyone. I mean, it was very clever. It was very strategic of Obama. And I believe, you know, he thought about running for president at some point or running for some sort of national office. And so Trump is doing the same thing. Everyone knows Trump, you know, they know, and he knows this. So he's this like perfect reality TV candidate.
Yeah.
And he's already put his life out. So nothing surprises you about Trump when he says the things that he says. When he does the thing, you know, it's like, oh, yeah, we know Donald, you know, so because he's been in our living room for so long.
We're in this interesting point now, though, where he said a lot of bombastic things. He said a lot of attention grabbers.
Right.
And so now
Understatement.
now he's in a position where he's going to have to defend these things, and he's going to have to lay out policy. He's going to have to lay out detail.
Exactly.
So when he goes on Meet the Press, which he did on Sunday, and he goes, "Yeah, we need to send all illegal immigrants, as he calls them, illegal immigrants, back.
Send them back.
What, 11 million?
Right.
In this country, 11 million undocumented?
Right. Yeah.
We're going to send them all back?
Send them all back.
Good luck."
It's a lot of money.
I mean, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of manpower. It's
Right.
I mean, the planning to make something like that happen is just not feasible.
Do we have that clip?
Were we able to pull that clip up?
Yeah,
We have to make a whole new set of standards. And when people come in, they have
So
to
you're
come
going to
in.
split up families. You're going to deport children.
Chuck, no. We're going to keep the families together. We have to keep the families together.
But you're going to keep them
they have
together
to
out.
go. But they have to go.
What if they have no place to go?
We will work with them. They have to go. Chuck, we either have a country or we don't have a country.
Like, to hear him go through that, it makes absolutely no sense. It sounds good.
Right.
Like, if you're against immigration and immigration reform, it sounds great.
It sounds awesome.
It's not feasible.
And that's what he's going after. He's going after that electorate, that demographic that's like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But let's come back and talk a little bit more about
Let's
that.
do it.
Right?
Give us a call. Give us a call. Give us a call.
Tell us what you think. 866-557-7377. And we'll be right back here at the Bill Press Show.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, the Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit
isn't it?
everything.
Yeah, a
it's
little bit.
kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
And our sexy liberal army of callers call in every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
We came here to Foster City where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
Yeah, go ahead. So it's like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, bro.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It's actually around 90
294, there was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends. I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Right. Exactly. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else. That we might be faced with, and that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to the Bill Press Show. We're live on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV, youtube.com TawkrTV if you want to watch us in the studio. Also, tweet us at BP Show. Call in 866-557-7377 if you're wondering who this guy is sitting in Bill's chair today. It's Charles Ellison.
Wonder no more.
I wonder no more. Charles Ellison. I'm at Ellison Report. You can also catch me at EllisonReport.com or in the pages of theroot.com. Also, the great Philadelphia Tribune as well. If you happen to live in the Philly metro area and you pick it up in print, you can also catch me there. I'm their Washington correspondent, by the way. So here in the studio with Peter Ogburn, also DJ Jamie getting it done on the board of steel. Thanks so much. He's been doing a fantastic job. So getting to just cutting all the grates and digging those crates. So we appreciate that, Jamie.
You're too kind.
Ray taking in the calls. Actually, we have a call, right? I think so. We should start taking in those calls. Excuse me. Just clear my throat here. Let me clear my throat. I'm showing my age now. Let me go to Steve in Chicago. How you doing, Steve?
Good. Hey, I just had one comment. Basically, that's on Donald Trump and his supporters. What him and his supporters fail to realize is the power of our checks and balances. He's just a ruling as a dictator through his companies. He's not going to be able to do anything he says because he wouldn't have any funding and he wouldn't have any support by anybody. And so the fact that he has so much support really tells you how much knowledge his voting base has. And if you listen to the way he talks, it's always, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It should be, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. But that's not how he operates, and that's why he would never be a successful president.
Yeah, I want to ask Steve a question, but that's all right. I think we're getting ready to go into a break. But make a point after the break. We'll be right back here on Bill Press Show, BillPressShow.com, 866-557-7377 if you want to cut in. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use, which is a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. what they're good at. In general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC. Or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to The Bill Press Show. We're at BP Show. Follow us. Check out what we're talking about, but you really should just listen to us. And you should just go to Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. Also on DirecTV and Dish. YouTube.com/Tawker, TawkrTV. And we're here at the Bill Press Show studios.
Doing a great job so far, Charles.
Thank you.
Good to have you,
I appreciate it. Yeah, my man Peter here sitting with me, and we're having some great conversation, great laughs. You may be watching us on camera. My man Sips kind of zooming in on us, and we're having quite a few chuckles and laughs. We also have some very serious conversation as well.
Indeed.
We always do. And feel free to call us, join in, 866-557-7377. We were talking about Shaun King.
Yeah.
Hashtag Shaun King. Shaun with a U.
Yeah.
And Shaun apparently taking 36 tweets to explain how black he is or not. We don't know yet.
So if you don't know who Shaun King is.
Right.
He's been very active in the Black Lives Matter movement.
Very active.
He's a writer for Daily Kos. He's an activist. He has shed a lot of light on the killings of unarmed black men in this country.
Has he been on the show?
He hasn't, actually.
Oh, he hasn't been
I think he's West Coast based.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. All right.
But he's done a great job.
Right.
He draws a lot of attention. But
right.
we got another one of these stories, man.
Yeah.
Where it looks like he has been presenting himself as a black man.
Yeah.
And that might not be the case. It looks like he might have two white parents.
Right. I always had some, I was a little skeptical for not skeptical in terms of his work.
Sure.
But when he first sort of blew up, and I saw photos of him, it was always in like these. It seemed like he was always in these black and white photos. And I'm like, it was just kind of this passing thought every time I would look at the photo. I'm like, yeah, it's a white dude. But I understand. He could be biracial. When I was looking at him, I'm biracial. Black mom, white dad. And so I can understand that, but this kind of, you can kind of also tell. People think I'm Hispanic. I get pushed off. People think I'm Puerto Rican. And just start speaking Spanish.
Wait a minute, you're black?
right. And I went to go get like Peruvian chicken the other day. I'm in the line, and they just kept speaking Spanish to me. I'm talking English. I'm talking, and I felt like going on Twitter.
Oh my God.
Felt like going on Twitter, man. And creating a hashtag, Ellison is black, and or Ellison is biracial, and I just felt like doing it because it just keeps speaking Spanish. I'm trying to make the order. I don't understand what they're saying. I finally get to the cash register, and she's like, "You're not Spanish." Sorry. I was like, "No, I'm sorry." I get that all the time. I get that all the time.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing so hard.
No, that's how it was,
funny.
man.
That's funny.
I just want to get my Peruvian chicken.
Man.
Maybe I need to talk to Donald about that.
Let me ask you this, right? Because I'm fascinated by this.
Yeah, it is fascinating.
But I can't talk to it with any real authority. In case y'all haven't seen me on TV,
right.
I'm about as white as they come.
Yeah.
But I think that this Sean King thing is fascinating because as a person who is sympathetic with the Black Lives Matter movement,
right,
which I am,
right,
and I try and shed as much light on it as I can through this show,
right.
There's the real question of whether or not he's suitable to talk about this,
right,
as a white guy, and be one of the leaders on this movement. As a white guy.
Right.
What's your take on that?
It doesn't discount the work that he's done.
Right.
It doesn't diminish his role in this burgeoning second civil rights movement. It doesn't diminish like the journalism that he's done. He's done a lot of investigative journalism. Sean King is considered to be one of the forerunners of this movement. He's considered on the front line on a regular basis, on a daily basis. However, that said, it speaks a little bit to his credibility or his ability to tell his story, well, if he's lying about his, something as basic as who he is or about his race, then you have to start thinking, well, what else is he lying about?
Yeah.
And so, that thought is going to come to mind, and naturally people are going to start thinking about that. So now, we've gone to Sean King's Twitter feed. He's retweeting out a bunch of friends, including another major national activist who doesn't officially, call himself sort of the king of the Black Lives Matter movement, but that's who everybody thinks he is, D. Ray McKeeson. And D. Ray's like, I support you, Sean, and everyone else is kind of Bakari Sellers. They're all kind of jumping in, supporting him. But, because it's because of all this work that he's done. And so no one wants to discount that. But when it takes you 36 tweets to explain whether or not you're black, and out of all those 36 tweets, there's no phrase, no sentence, anything that says I am black.
Nope.
Because, obviously there's some kind of situation there. I feel like he should have been like Rachel Dolezal. He should have just been like, repeat the question, please. Like he should just put it.
I don't understand the question.
I don't understand the question.
I don't understand the question.
I don't understand the question. Right. I mean, it just at this point, it's taking a whole lot for him to explain what he is or what's his background. And it's taking a lot away from the work that he has done.
He spends a lot of these tweets talking about the weird backstory,
right?
Which, like, okay,
right,
okay,
yeah,
like I get that racial things,
exactly.
like it could get a little complicated, right? Like, okay,
yeah,
but it seems to me that if you are presenting yourself, as a black man, at some point you've got to say, I like. If you're like, I'm a black man, if you're going to come out and defend yourself like this, there's just some things that, as a white guy and the work that he's done, not to discount that, but there are just some things that he and I, we're just never going to understand. We've never had black skin, right?
Yeah, like the whole hate crime thing.
Yeah, I just I've never had to worry about one of the really truly eye-opening things to me about these last couple of years with the Black Lives Matter movement and all that is listening to black people that we have on the show, my black friends who tell stories about when I white guy when I get in trouble, I call the police.
Right.
Black people don't do that. Like they're told, do not go to the police. Like if you're in trouble, don't find a police officer.
Calling the police is like getting the nuclear codes.
Yeah,
you gotta go. That's a last reason. If you even have to do it, if you you're in a real bind.
Like that never in a million years would cross my mind. So if you're a guy like Sean King, that's a white guy, I just don't know how you can relate.
See, that's honestly, it's kind of the offensive part because this whole, for example, there's this story that they're saying he concocted about being the victim of a hate crime, of being jumped by like a dozen people in Versailles, Kentucky. And people down there, it's like a small town. They don't have any recollection of it. And to me, it's kind of offensive if he did make that up because, I can tell you someone grew up in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, and literally crossing over to the other side of the tracks over to Northeast Philly and being in that type of situation. Now, it wasn't as bad as what Sean King described when he was jumped, but I remember being jumped by a bunch of white, being ran out of Northeast Philly to get back on the other side of the track. I mean, when I was a kid, and it was dangerous. Yeah. And, you're having like skateboards and baseball bats and stuff thrown at you. I mean, it's a scary situation because my friend and I were like, what the hell? Yeah. And so if he's lying about that, it's like
it trivializes.
It trivializes that kind of experience, and so it does make it a bit offensive if he indeed lied about it. And the Blaze did quite a bit of work, but also know where publications like the Blaze and Breitbart where they're coming from.
Yeah. So no, I'm fascinated by it. I really am, and I think he's probably got some more explaining to do. I don't think this is over with. Some explaining to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that he should be run out or carried off of Twitter on a rail or anything like that.
No one's saying white people can't talk about black issues or Black Lives Matter issues or investigate. There's a lot of great white journalists who are out there and journalists of color as well who are investigating this issue.
Yeah.
No one's saying he can't do that, but just keep it real as far as who you are and your background, and it just creates problems for the issue and for the movement at large. We're getting ready to head into a break. I'm Charles Ellison here on the Bill Press Show. I got Peter Ogburn here in the studio with me at BP Show on Twitter. If you want to talk with us about Sean King and other issues, BillPressShow.com, YouTube.com/TawkrTV. We'll be right back.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop. You have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the Bill Press Show. I am your guest host, filling in for Bill Press. My name is Charles Ellison. You can catch me at Ellison Report. Go to ellisonreport.com. You may have already caught me in the pages of the Root.com's fantastic publication. Actually, we just got picked up by Univision. Nice. We're now a subsidiary of Univision. Beautiful. As of about a month, 2 months ago. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. So that's great. So now I got to brush up on my Spanish. I really do have to brush up on my Spanish now, right? Yeah. They probably bought the Root just because of you. Right. Oh, we got this Latin writer here, Charles Ellison. It's my favorite Latino writer. Yo, writing about black issues, right? Yeah. We weren't sure, but we saw him ordering Peruvian chicken the other day. He's Latino. Right, he's Latino. It's like, Univision's like, well, here's the amount we're talking about. We got you covered. We got you. Can you double it? We got our man Charles Ellison. Oh no, his name's Carlos. Carlos Ellison. Ellison. Right. You're right. That's actually pretty good, man. Oh man, that's pretty funny. Call us at 866-557-7377 at BP Show. Charles Ellison, by the way, is my name. We've been in here. We have some actually very fascinating conversation about Shaun King. Just a couple of parting thoughts on that from what we were talking about in the previous segment.
Yeah.
You don't have to have this like fantastical kind of mythical kind of experience to be black. I mean, if you lived in and I grew up with like folks like this. Like I grew up in North Philly. Like I literally grew up in the city of North Philadelphia. And I know sometimes I would get this like when I'd go outside of North Philly, people would thought that I was from another part of town, where it was relatively middle class, a bunch of light-skinned black people, relatively affluent, and they think I'm just like, no, I'm from North Philly, right. And it was pretty working class, fairly working, and it wasn't too dangerous, but some folks, they would kind of create these stories about the type of neighborhoods they grew up in, and it's like if you grew up in the suburbs, and own it. Yeah, if you grew up in a nice part of town, own it. That's cool. That's fine. As long as your heart's in the right place. And I just don't understand this. If Shaun King went to that length to feel like I've got to create this, like sometimes being black is, it's obviously it's an experience. It's a racial and cultural experience. But sometimes, it can be boring. Yeah. I mean, being a white guy can be boring. You know what I'm saying? I mean, right. and that's okay.
It's not the one thing
that's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you didn't grow up and you didn't get thrown up against a police car, that's actually good.
Yeah,
that's called
progress.
That's called right.
That's what we want.
That's fine. Own that. So, and it's like it doesn't have to be like this
Jason and the Argonauts type storyline, and I guess he felt like he had to do that. I don't know.
There's an interesting moment a couple months ago when President Obama did that, the Mark Maron podcast, the WTF podcast.
Right.
And he talked about racism.
Right.
And he says, racism isn't just some white guy that calls me the N-word.
Right.
It's a lot bigger. It's not just the blatant, in-your-face racism. It's not that.
Right.
Because that happens, but that's not the stuff that happens every day. We all see that, and we all know that's wrong.
Right.
Or the vast majority of us, right? It's the more under the current, everyday, common racism.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
And that's
that
really
we got
the
to
conversation. And that's what he's been trying to say, President Obama. And also Eric Holder had been saying that quite a bit during his tenure as Attorney General. Like, that's the conversation we have to have about race and racism. We've got to have that conversation about structural racism. I remember the speech that Eric Holder gave about at Morgan State University at the commencement address that he gave, and he was saying that he's like, okay, we can get all like bent up out of shape over what somebody said, but really what's more important is kind of like what's being done, like what people are doing, what systems are doing. So it's fascinating in that sense. And speaking of which, I'm like, I think we got to go into a break real soon, but I did want to play a real quick clip because while we're on Black Lives Matter, while we're on these issues, Hillary Clinton talking to Black Lives Matter activists out of Boston. I think we got a few seconds. Can you play that where she's talking about a plan?
I think that there has to be a reckoning. I agree with that. But I also think there has to be some positive vision and plan that you can move people toward.
Yeah, so she's kind of going there a bit. It's like you can tell there's things that she wants to say, and when you're looking at that YouTube clip, but she's like, I don't want to say it. Yeah. It's kind of like, she's really kind of saying like, you don't really have your stuff together, so just get back to me when you do. But I mean, she's saying that, but she's also saying a number of other things. But we'll talk about that after break. We got to go into do we have a quick break yet?
Yeah, you got a quick break here. Yeah.
Oh no, about got another minute.
You got
so.
another minute or so.
Yeah. I mean, how did you take that, Peter, when you saw that video?
I think that she needs to find her voice.
Right.
On how to speak to the Black Lives Matter movement. Right. I think that the Black Lives Matter movement is going to have a really, really big impact on this race. Like we are in a moment where you can't ignore it. Right. If you're running for president, you gotta
say something.
You gotta say something about it. Right. Martin O'Malley got torched when they confronted him about it at
Netroots in Phoenix.
He didn't have a good answer.
Right.
Bernie Sanders didn't have a great answer either.
And I think with Black Lives Matter, it's now just they've got to figure out how to kind of transition from that awareness phase to now that which she was kind of talking about. And the young lady who was there was saying that she felt kind of jilted by the conversation.
Yeah.
I think it was that part of the conversation where it was like, you need a plan.
This kind of reminds me a little bit of the Occupy movement.
Yeah.
In the sense that they got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the movement is that it's not like a centrally orchestrated thing that's got a ton of money behind it from a large corporation. Right? Like it's a real honest to God movement.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, you don't always have a lot of structure to it. And so I think that presidential candidates and the movement are going to have to come together and work to find what it is that we can do.
Right. And they've got to do more than just sort of re-script already scripted messaging.
Right.
They're really going to have to start making some policy pledges. And so that's where also BLM comes in, has to kind of push them to that point as well. And you know what? Jury's still kind of out. It's because of the election, the timing of the election it's about a year, it's over a year away. We still don't know what's this movement going to be like in terms of voter mobilization, in terms of fundraising, in terms of political strategy, all that stuff. That's kind of I think that's where she was kind of going. Yeah. It was a very subtle kind of Bulworth moment.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
That's really what she wanted to say, stuff like Warren Beatty and Bulworth, but she couldn't, obviously because she's Hillary Clinton.
Right.
We got to wrap up. We're going into a break. We're here at the Bill Press Show. I'm Charles Ellison, at Ellison Report, or go to @BP Show. Sitting here with my man Peter. We'll be right back.
on your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
All right, welcome back to the Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison, sitting in for the great Bill Press. And you can catch me at Ellison Report. We're at BP Show. If you'd like to join in, I've seen a couple of tweets from folks who are just up and out and about early this morning. So just don't drive and tweet. Don't drive and tweet. Don't do it. Don't do it. So just pull over to the side of the road. Definitely. And I'm like looking at the camera like they'd be watching us and driving at the same time. Definitely don't watch do that, right? Please don't do that, fam. So you can catch us youtube.com/TawkrTV. Free Speech TV is also on DirecTV and Dish. 866-557-7377. Got a great hour coming up.
This
Avery Friedman
is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or wherever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to The Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host for this morning, Charles Ellison. You can catch me at Ellison Report, but really you should just go tweet at BP Show. Also, you can watch us, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We're live on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. Which you can watch on DirecTV and Dish. Also, I was told you can go to Facebook, right? Go
yes,
to
sir.
Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Actually, we were just talking about that. So if you're among our much more esteemed older listening audience, go to Facebook.com. This is different between Twitter and Facebook. You can download us on your iHeartRadio app. Got an app. And on TuneIn app using the Progressive Voices channel.
We're on it.
Got a lot of stuff going on there with the Bill Press Show. You're all over it. That's good. I'm here with my man, Peter Ogburn, executive producer, Jamie Benson, DJ Benson, getting it done.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Getting it done on the board is still Ray Rogers. She is taking in calls, doing a number of other things as well. She's getting it done. Cyprian Bolding is our video operator, and he's also got us zoomed in here on the cameras, doing a fantastic job. Got a great team here. We've got a great hour lined up for you. In fact, we've got our next guest. He's on phone. He's waiting to talk about the once great Jared Fogle.
Man, what a story!
Yeah, golly. So we're gonna talk to Avery. If anyone has any kind of perspective on this, can kind of navigate us through all the legal minutia, it's Avery Friedman. He's a weekend legal correspondent for CNN. You can check him out at averyfriedman.com. He's got this illustrious legal career. He's got actually a rather fascinating legal career.
Yeah.
And
he's our legal guy.
Teaching law, etc. Mr. Friedman, how are you doing, sir?
Well, good morning to you, Charles. Nice to be with you. Nice to be with everybody else.
All right. Nice being with you as well. So, and I understand you're not on Twitter either. So, I respect that. I admire that, actually, because sometimes I don't.
Well, and I get a lot of grief because I'm not either, right? But
yeah, but I mean.
Was that esteemed older demographic you were talking about earlier?
No, that was Facebook. So apparently, we're supposed to be on Facebook.
I'm even more pathetic, guys.
Right. But who has the time? You got to keep up with the law. You got to keep up with the statutes and codes and everything. Who has the time to be on Twitter and Facebook all day? So,
actually, there's some truth to that. I mean, for those of us in public interest and human rights work, it is 7 days a week, and
exactly.
So that's all I need to do is expand the amount of time I've got.
That's right. Yeah, you got to
once we figure that out,
days.
maybe we'll find you.
We'll find another 7 days, or
right.
move to another planet where there's 48 hours instead of 24. So tell us a little bit about this Jared Fogle, this debacle. I mean, that's unraveling right now. Now he's pled guilty, correct? And so the sentencing phase has not happened yet. I mean, how much, in terms of years, do you expect Jared getting?
Well, there's a spectrum. There are federal guidelines for sentencing, which the Supreme Court has held to be voluntary, although most federal district judges use it. This is a federal district judge in Indianapolis who has the case. Jared Fogle, I think, is one very lucky guy, and I bet you're surprised to hear me say that.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave Peter an example. 2 days ago, I was in a courtroom representing a victim of the sort of behavior we see in the Fogle case. And the judge gave this individual, who had no criminal background, 4 years. Under federal statute, Fogle's looking at 20 years, Charles. But in the negotiation going back and forth between the defense team and the United States attorney in Indianapolis, it looks like a range between 5 to 12 and a half years. It's a lot of time, but it is not the higher end of the spectrum. And frankly, I think that's where it should be.
I was going to say, the charges when we first heard about this were possession of child pornography, but as these charges came out, they're quite serious. I mean, there were multiple times that he was with minors and was looking for minors and was paying for sex with minors. When I heard 5 to 20 years, I thought, that's it? How does he not go away for a much longer time?
I'm with you on that one. The second, what happened was that in accordance with an agreement, it's an indictment, but they call it an information because this was a deal put together before Jared was charged. And there's only 2 counts. One is the distribution and receipt of pornography and conspiracy to distribute. We know about that. The second one was 1 count. That's it, guys. 1 count of travel to engage in illicit sexual contact with a minor. And traveling to engage in illicit sexual contact. Remember, he had involvement, I think, once at the Ritz and another time at the Plaza in Manhattan with an underage girl. But it's much deeper than that. And the way his defense team is spinning it is saying, we accept responsibility. It's like the Marion Barry syndrome. Everybody gets religion and gets serious after they get caught.
Right.
Well, and that's really what this is. And secondly, they're saying, well, he's getting intensive psychiatric help to find out what this was about. Well, I mean, he knew what it was about. He was actually using an individual who ran his foundation as a co-conspirator in attracting children. So,
and Avery, explain to us what was sort of the rationale, if you can sort of go into the minds of the defense team. What was sort of the rationale behind pleading guilty as opposed to going to trial? Or is this something, I mean, once you get caught with child pornography, once you get caught soliciting or sex with minors, I mean, it's pretty much kind of like it's a done deal. It's not something you want to go to trial about. You don't want to go through all those embarrassing details.
Yeah, I think you just answered your own question. You're exactly right. And remember, my perspective is different than a defense team because I'm in a courtroom for the victims who have to go through this. And you'll notice that part of the deal was purported restitution. There are 14 children. Each will get $100,000 toward medical. And I have to tell you guys, it is the tip of the iceberg for some of these kids. The young woman who was victimized, the one that I was trying to care for in a courtroom this week, she's already had about $260,000 worth of therapy. And so everybody's going, wow, $1.4 million is a lot of money. He's worth $15 million.
Yeah.
I think it's a conservative end of things.
I mean, could he have given more, or was that all part of sort of the arrangement?
Yeah.
Like, we can pay less if we plead guilty.
The plea was the smart way to go because if he would have gone to trial, he would have been looking at 20. So now he's got 5.5 to 12, likely. Again, remember, it's up to the federal district judge to make that decision. I mean, the U.S. attorney can agree and the defense team can agree, but ultimately it's the U.S. District Judge going to make that decision when the sentencing is scheduled, and we'll see that probably within a month or so.
If you didn't hear us earlier, we're talking to weekend legal correspondent for CNN, Avery Friedman. You can catch him at averyfriedman.com if you'd like to get more information. We're talking about the Jared Fogle case. You remember Jared, the former Subway pitchman, who was on all those great Subway commercials. And, I mean, he pretty much was the face of Subway for
He was
quite
the face
some
of
time.
Subway. Like, I mean, from a business standpoint, I don't know how Subway is going to handle
Right.
I mean, they distanced themselves and they dropped him immediately.
Yeah, but Avery, that's a good question as far as not so much what sort of economic hit Subway takes, but also, I mean, is there any sort of legal liability here for Subway to worry about? Like, did he engage in that behavior while he was a Subway pitchman?
Well,
with Subway, was there any sort of way in which resources from that company was used in this sort of activity? Is that anything to consider?
I think it's an intriguing question, but I think in all fairness, there's no evidence that surfaced at this point that Subway knew or could have known what this guy was doing. I mean, if you think about this, and no one has talked about it, but the biggest controversy Subway ever ran into before this was whether or not the foot long was actually 12 inches.
That's right. I remember that. I do remember that.
It turned into a civil class action case.
Yeah.
You know, and there is a high level of acceptability in the American public. They like going there. Whether or not that's because, they found an obese guy at IU in Bloomington who said, look, I exercise and all I do is eat Subway sandwiches. And maybe that actually got to him. I don't know. But, that was the pitch, and it was a clever one. I think it's going to, I think companies are going to start examining, well, in our marketing, are we going to stick with one guy who does something weird? I mean, there was some marketing expert who said, well, we're going to make a tighter morals clause.
Yeah, I mean, but did they vet him? Like, he had to have had issues, right?
That is one of the most successful ad campaigns.
It is, yeah.
That I can think of, right? Like, I forget which movie. Was the movie Super Size Me, where they talk about obesity in America?
Right.
He goes and he hears Jared speak to it. Because this guy, he went on speaking tours. He would speak to students and all this type of stuff. He was interviewing students afterwards.
Well, and think about that. It was the issue that Charles raised a little bit earlier. He's going on speaker tours underwritten by the company. Of course, he's using those tours to,
Right.
And so that might be one of the things that Charles has raised. But I genuinely believe that I think the company has a reasonably good defense. Again, there may be civil actions. I would think not, but you never can tell until discovery comes out, and there's a lot more evidence than the public knows about right now.
And Avery, I sense some sort of concern on your part that the way this went down legally, and also in terms of the sentencing, in terms of what you feel is a sort of a paltry amount given to the victims, you have concerns about the sort of message this sends to other likely perpetrators of child molestation. Also, we've been having a lot of conversation lately in the public discourse about sex trafficking, and you're worried about the kind of message this sends nationally and globally.
Well, this is sex trafficking, and again, this was a deal worked out. Where were the holes in the case from the standpoint of the prosecution? Why was there a reduction of the max? Prosecutors are claiming they're shooting for no less than 12.5. Defense team is saying no more than 5. Again, the good news is the federal district judge is going to make that decision, irrespective of what the parties. The judge is going to give serious consideration to that spectrum that we're talking about. But I think that's a fair question. I mean, when we catch guys like this, a prominent guy with a lot of dough. If he faces 20 and he walks away with, let's say, 8 or 10 or something like that, what message is there, conveyed to the public? But you need to be respectful of the defense team. Their job, irrespective of who they represent, is to do the best they can for the guy. And the U.S. attorney is saying, look, there's always a problem. We lose one juror, there's no conviction. So this is a compromise which we understand, but, your heart, your soul, what's inside of you, look at this and say, it should be tougher than that, don't you think?
Yeah. We're talking with Avery Friedman. He's CNN Weekend Legal Correspondent, averyfriedman.com. You got a legal show, too, don't you, Avery?
Yeah, it's next month, 14 years on the air every Saturday.
That's
and
awesome.
it's something we're real proud of, and I'm very proud of CNN in holding on to this thing. I mean, there's nobody lower there, and so I'm like bottom of the barrel, and they've trusted me, and it's worth. But it's a wonderful thing, and it crosses from the constitutionality of affordable health care to what's the latest with Lindsay Lohan. So the format has really been pop culture versus sober constitutionality. It's a great gig, and it's on during the noon hour East Coast time every Saturday on CNN.
That's right.
Congratulations, buddy. That's awesome.
I really appreciate that. It was really nice being with you guys.
You too.
Thank you.
Always
Avery.
good to talk to you, Avery.
Take care.
All right, that was Avery Friedman, CNN Weekend Legal Correspondent. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison, sitting in for Bill Press. We'll be right back.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
my beauty,
my power,
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to The Bill Press Show. Filling in for Bill Press, I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison, here in the Bill Press Show studios on Capitol Hill.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's where we're getting it done here in the Eastern Market section.
Yes, that's right.
I was like amazed when I walked in here. I remember that school across the street knocked it down.
Gone.
Just
By the way, we will be sitting here doing the show.
Yeah,
it's not as bad anymore since they got it down.
Right.
All of a sudden, we would just. We start shaking, and they brought down a big piece of the school. But
and people be watching the broadcast. There's an earthquake in DC.
Right.
It starts going viral on Twitter. Earthquake in DC, right? It's just Bill Press Show. It's it's that guy.
It's just us.
Filling big shoes here for Bill Press. I want to thank him just publicly. First of all, just for having me on as a guest. Really appreciate that. Appreciate it, Peter.
Doing a hell of a job,
today.
man.
Thank you very much. Jamie Vincent getting it done. Also, Sip on the camera, and my girl Ray here as well getting it done. So we got a great show. We got another hour and a half here. We had a great segment with Avery Friedman. Speaking of Avery, so I wanted to ask him about the 14th Amendment because Donald Trump's been on this warpath against the 14th Amendment. And it's not like the 14th Amendment is a big deal. It's not like we needed the 14th Amendment, to free slaves and all. But, apparently Donald Trump feels like that we don't need a 14th Amendment, that it's illegal. And I meant to ask him about that. In fact, Trump says something about illegal. He makes this outrageous statement. You can't be surprised. I mean, it is Donald. But we got to play this clip about illegal immigrants that
you look at Chicago, you look at Baltimore, you look at Ferguson, you look at a lot of these places. A lot of these gangs, and the most vicious, are illegals.
How is that true?
Right.
Where have you heard that at all before?
No, notice the way he's saying it though, because he cuts up two streams of thoughts here.
Yeah, right.
Two streams of consciousness. First, he starts off with Ferguson, Baltimore. So you got that visual in your head of the unrest, the violence in Ferguson and Baltimore. And then he doesn't say, the unrest, the violence in Ferguson and Baltimore was caused by undocumented migrants. He just suddenly cuts into another thought. And these gangs, that's how he does it. He cuts up, it'll be several thoughts in one stream of Trumpishness, and, Trumpishness. That's how he does. But then by the time you've caught up with Ferguson, Baltimore, he hits you with those illegal migrant gangs,
exactly.
And that's how he did. I don't know how he it's amazing.
To be perfectly honest, it's masterful.
It is.
In terms of communicating and controlling a conversation, it is a master class in how to own a room and also lie to someone's face without them even realizing that you lied to them.
Bold-faced lie.
I mean, you're right. That is such a Trump style.
Yeah.
Full of Trumpishness. I like that. I'm going to use that.
It is, man. Yeah, Trump.
But first of all, I mean, just dissecting the gangs in Baltimore were not the problem. The gangs in Ferguson
first
were
of all,
not
that's
a problem.
Right. First of all, the gangs in Baltimore were not the problem. Okay,
right.
So it completely just misses the point.
Right.
Okay.
Starting with that.
Starting with that. The gangs
were
not the problem. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things that factored into what happened in Baltimore, what happened in Ferguson, for that matter, right?
Yeah.
So, secondly, I mean, and if you want to start talking about the demographic makeup of folks who were caught up in that unrest in Baltimore, Ferguson, it wasn't undocumented, from what we know, you know what I mean? And so it's the facts are on the ground.
What do we know about it?
But he knows that. I mean, when he says this stuff, he knows. But it's the way he presents it. I mean, it's masterful.
Yeah.
Gotta give it to him. I'm Charles Ellison. You can catch me at Ellison Report or catch us at BP Show. We're here at the Bill Press Show, and we'll be right back after this break.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Did you know that the average...
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Speckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in this city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earthalluia.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to The Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host for today, Charles Ellison, standing in for the great Bill Press. You can catch us at BP Show. No, not at BP Spill. No, at BP Show. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/TawkrTV. You can catch us there live on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison. You can catch me at Ellison Report. Call us 866-557-7377. We've got another great guest standing by online. Real quick, I was hearing that Humane Society commercial while we were on break. I've got the perfect movie for the Humane Society. I mean, if you want to turn people off to dog fighting, if you want to, even like Michael Vick's Boys, like if you want to just completely just turn them against dog fighting,
right.
Go watch, or you can stream it now, I think, White God.
Oh, okay.
White God is this, oh my gosh, dude, it's a Hungarian film. It came out earlier this year, and it's about this dog that leads a dog revolt, totally shuts Hungary down, shuts Budapest down. and it was because, you know, like he was just stolen, ripped away. Like, I don't want to give too much away, but you got to check out White God. But it shows you like the ugly realities of dogfighting.
Oh, wow.
Like they actually go kind of like deep into, I guess, Hungarian dogfighting. And you really are like, it makes you think twice about like if you feel like you're looking at your pet and you want to, you know, sort of like reprimand them or whatever.
Right,
you're like,
right,
oh, it's okay. I saw a white guy. Like, it's all good. It's all good. It's
I'm
okay.
gonna let you skate on this one.
Here's a treat. You know, like you will treat your pets differently once you see White Guy. Like it is an amazing film. If you don't mind subtitles, Hungarian film, White Guy. Humane Society should pick it up and they should like distribute it.
Oh, nice.
Like it's that.
I'll
it's
check
that
that
good.
out.
Like I really did. Like after that movie, I was kind of like, man, Michael Vick, man. Like, and you know, I'm a Philly Eagles. I'm like lifetime Philly Eagles fan. I was like, man, like Michael Vick, like that's bad. Like, why did Michael Vick do that? Like, man, so you know, you get mad at Michael Vick. Like, you're like, how could he do that, right? Once you see like the vivid dogfighting scenes in White Guys. So anyway, not to digress, I got my good friend, American Enterprise Institute senior fellow. He's also a former Pentagon official. Spent some time in Iran as well. He spent like a few years in Iran, kind of studying it. And this is like pre-agreement, U.S.-Iran nuclear deal agreement, which I'm going to ask him a little bit about that. Michael Rubin, you can catch him at mrubin 1971. Michael and I, we went to high school together, by the way. So, and he's a great guy. He's also, he's like really one of the great minds when it comes to foreign policy issues. Sometimes I like to call on him, get his perspective. And Michael joins us by phone. Michael, how are you doing, sir?
Pretty good, Charles. It's a pleasure to talk with you again.
I know. It really is. It really is. And we're both very busy. And I always say I need to catch up with you, and I never do. But that's coming from a good place, dude. So it's really good to have you on. So there's so much to talk about because there's so many flashpoints throughout the world. I want to start off with Turkey. And I'm sure you've been watching the situation with Turkey. So now it's the latest country in a line of countries that have entered the fray. That's like the Iraq-Syria zone of conflict. And I mean, does it make the situation better, or Turkey's done this before? So this isn't really, this is also kind of creating a new mess, a new firestorm here, correct?
You're absolutely right. I mean, the way I tend to look at Turkey, Charles, is it's become Pakistan on the Mediterranean. And what they do is essentially, they say one thing to diplomats, they do quite another when it comes to countering terrorism, with the net result that we get an absolute mess. When it comes to Turkey right now, you got not only the fact that they're the chief transit point for the Islamic State. People talk about, the U.S. government talks about 22,000 foreign fighters in the Islamic State from more than 90 countries. Yeah. Most of those have transited Turkey. And at the same time, now Turkey's talking about a safe haven, but instead of creating a safe haven, sort of like what we did back almost 25 years ago in Iraq for the Kurds, but in this case, it's a safe haven, but the Turks are bombing the Kurds. So what gives?
What was the tipping point for the Turks? Because the Turks had been staying out of this for some time. They didn't want to get any heat from Islamic State. They apparently were in negotiations with, for a long time, they'd actually crafted some sort of peace deal with the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which they view as a terrorist group. There had been like this ongoing long war between the Turkish government and PKK. Where was the tipping point? I mean, was it the Turkish elections? Because they had an election recently.
Well, I think in many ways it is the Turkish elections, Charles. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because it looks like we're going to have a repeat of those pretty darn soon. Yeah. The thing to keep in mind with Turkish elections as opposed to American elections is that the Turkish elections work differently. First of all, it's a parliamentary system, and so the proportion of the vote matters. Second of all, they have this rule. It's called a threshold rule, that that a party has to win 10% of the vote, and if they don't win 10% of the vote, their person doesn't get into parliament, and instead his seat is given to someone else. And so you have a situation where ever since 2002, when now the president's party, the Recep Tayyip Erdogan, came into office, he had almost 2/3 of the seats in parliament, but oftentimes he only had 1/3 of the vote. What happened last June is the Kurds, for the first time in recent memory, passed the 10% threshold. Long story short, this meant that the president's party lost its majority in Parliament. And so they've been trying to put together a coalition. What it seems the president is doing is trying to whip up nationalist fervor, make the Kurds into an enemy, peace deal be damned, in order to have a revote, and this time not have the Kurds participate so he can get that majority in Parliament again.
Oh, this is a hot mess. So we've got Michael Rubin here to sort it out for us. He is a senior fellow with the American Enterprise Institute, is a world-renowned expert on Middle Eastern affairs or Eurasian affairs. I mean, Michael Rubin is like your go-to guy on that. He's a former official at the Department of Defense, also spent some time in Iran as well. And Michael, forgive me, I have been reading some of your book. I haven't read it for like a few months now. I got to get back to it. I went halfway. Your latest book that just came out recently. What was the title?
It was Dancing with the Devil.
Exactly.
But the important thing is if any of your listeners go to Amazon.com, look at Dancing for Devil and end up buying the vampire romance, that's not the right version.
It's Dancing with the Devil by Michael Rubin.
It's the one about the rogue regimes, not the one about vampires and teenagers.
Right. Yeah, we have to make that clarification. I'm glad we brought you on, Michael, so you could do Dancing with the Devil. So it's a fantastic piece. Michael, want to ask you about the Kurds. And so, like, the Kurds are heroes, right? I mean, we've been watching the Kurds handle Islamic State, watching, like, these glorious footage coming out of Iraq for some time where, like, when the Iraqi army falls flat, when it breaks down, here come the Kurds, and the Peshmerga fighters. You even see women Peshmerga fighters. I mean, they're badass. I mean, I love watching like footage of Peshmerga just like totally kicking Islamic State, pretty much like wherever they are. But why are the Turks then they're waging this like two-front war, against Islamic State, but they're also like bombing the Kurds as well? I mean, why is so much hate on the Kurds?
Well, the first thing to know about the Kurds is they're not united. So in reality, fighting the Islamic State, we have the Syrian Kurds and we have the Iraqi Kurds.
Right.
And the irony of American policy is that the Americans will work with the Iraqi Kurds, but we won't work with the Syrian Kurds because we don't want to upset the Turks. Okay. The Turks don't like the Syrian Kurds because they're related to the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which beginning in 1984 had waged an insurgency inside Turkey. Now that insurgency was over because the Turks had started peace talks with the Kurds, but what happened in the run-up to these elections, the Turks turned around and started bombing the Kurds, both in Syria and inside Turkey itself, and therefore the Kurds have said, screw this ceasefire, and now we have civil conflict in Turkey. Now, just to make it a little bit more complex, I mean, I'm glad we're doing this interview today, Charles, because today marks the first transition in theory, according to the Constitution, of the leadership of the Iraqi Kurds. The president had 2 terms. He had a second term extended for 2 years, and he was supposed to step down today.
Right.
Well, he's announced that he's not stepping down, and yet the Speaker of Parliament has said, well, according to the Constitution, I'm the president now, and so we really have a constitutional crisis among our allies in Iraqi Kurdistan, and what really disappoints me is that yesterday the State Department was trying to broker a meeting on this, and and said, why don't you just extend this president's term for 2 years? And the head of the Kurdish opposition, democratically elected Kurdish opposition, basically schooled the American diplomat and said, why don't you just give President Obama a 3rd term? What do these constitutions mean anyway? He said sarcastically. And it really, we had no answer to that.
When he started talking about Iraqi Kurds, Syrian Kurds, it's like the song, what was it? Some of these Kurds are, remember like Sesame Street or something? It's a very confusing situation. We've been talking with Michael Rubin at mrubin1971. Also can go to the American Enterprise Institute, AEI.org. I know, Michael, while we've got like less than a minute, you're not a big fan of the way the Obama administration's handled this. I know that for a fact. I mean, how could they handle it any better, though?
Handled the Kurds, you mean?
Yeah, exactly, the situation with the Turks.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, basically what I think we need to do is, I agree with you, the Kurds are our friends, and we need to be working with both Kurds. What I say with regard to Turkey is, look, there's diplomatic work we can do. We can basically pressure Turkey to seal its border and to stop giving visa waivers at the airport. That would cut down 90% of the jihadist traffic.
Hey, Michael, thanks so much. Always appreciate your perspective and point of view.
Thanks, Charles.
And it's been good talking to you. Michael Rubin, at mrubin1971, American Enterprise Institute. Go to aei.org. I don't really like a lot of things about AEI, but I love Michael Rubin at AEI.
Smart stuff.
Yes, very smart stuff coming out of from Michael Rubin. We are going to be right back here on the Bill Press Show. My name is Charles Ellison. I'm filling in for Bill Press for the next hour and 15 minutes. I got Peter Ogburn in here sitting in with me, and we're going to be right back.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Welcome back to the Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison, sitting in for Bill Press. We're live on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. Catch us on Twitter at BP Show, but also got to give props to Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. You can also catch us on your iHeartRadio app if you want to listen to us as you're on the go. 866-557-7377. Call us. You want to rap? Want to talk to us and see what we're talking about, what's on our minds. Obviously, you can go to @BP Show. You can catch me at Ellison Report, see what's on my mind. So I try to, I can multitask as with the best of them, but sometimes I got to focus on the mic and focus on Twitter. So I'll try to get back to you as fast as I can. Got Peter Ogburn here, executive producer, getting it done. Jamie Benson running the board. Ray Rogers screening the calls, and also Cyprian Bolding, video operator, getting it done as well. Emails. So there's a lot of talk about emails. We're like it's like we've rediscovered emails. We become re-engaged with emails. Like, what are they all about? And so that's the thing that's kind of harassing the Clinton campaign these days. They are just they are under a mountain of emails. Like when you talk about like, oh man, my inbox, man, it's just I can't manage it. I'm under a mountain of emails. Like the Hillary Clinton campaign, they are literally under emails. And so now there's like this new conversation about what constitutes classified information, what doesn't, like what is it exactly? That's how the Hillary Clinton is trying to define classified information. Let's play a clip. I think, is this one of her lawyers?
This is Brian Fallon, the Clinton spokesman.
Clinton spokesman explaining what
we
classified
think
information.
that, furthermore, this matter is mostly just shining a spotlight on a culture of classification that exists within certain corners of the government, especially the intelligence community.
Yeah, it's a culture of classification. I like that. Culture of classification. That's like that's a new black. It's like, that's the, that is the like mid-2000s version of I didn't have sexual relations.
Right. It depends on what your definition of is.
Right. What is right. That's what this. So, and they're very good at that. Like Donald Trump is good at his thing. Clinton campaign is very good at this.
They are very good at
obfuscating. And you don't know how serious. We know that this is serious in terms of the political reaction to it. It's not a good look if you're a presidential candidate, and suddenly you're ending up at a congressional hearing explaining why you put classified email or why you put that's what they're trying to determine if these are classified emails or not. You're putting them on a private server. And that's so, I mean, even if she didn't do anything illegal, it's just not a good look at all. You should be out on the campaign trail, not in front of Congress.
That's one of the things that we keep saying on the show when Bill is here, and I say it as well. People have laid out this narrative, right? That like she's not the only person to do this, and they're right? Like other presidencies and secretaries of state have done this. Right. Other people that are running for president now
did it.
Colin Powell did it. Other people that are running for president right now have had some problems with their email.
Right.
And the full transparency thing. But what it really comes down to for me is this is not a good look.
No, it's not.
It's just the optics of this are not very good. And if heaven forbid she does get called in front of some sort of subcommittee, which, by the way, part of this is a witch hunt because it's Hillary Clinton. They're going to take it as far as they can because her last name is Clinton. But she should also play a little defense on that fact, right? Like you cannot be running for president and have to go and deal with this in front of like the Justice Department.
Yeah.
It's just not a good look.
No, you should. I mean, the FBI is wiping through going through your server.
Yeah.
A couple of things we do know. She definitely has to brush up on her tech speed. So, Hillary Clinton is far from, this like a geek. She's definitely not that. We saw that in full display at that recent press conference. Do we have clips of the press conference? You know what, Jamie? I wish you had like a clip. And I'm sorry, I know this was last minute. It was like 11th hour. The clip where she's like talking about like wiping the servers clean.
What, like with a cloth?
Right, yeah. So she's got to brush up on her ability to talk digital. We do know that. I just would have responded to this. If I were the Clinton campaign, sort of advice I'd be giving. That's okay, Jamie, because I know I kind of threw that on you like last minute. I would have kind of started from the start. I would have hit this like, well, yeah, I put my emails on a private server. Yeah. Like, you see how much the government's getting hacked these days? Would you want your emails on a like if you were Secretary of State? Like, I would have hit it like that. I just would have been like, and make it into like make cybersecurity like a major platform agenda issue. That's the way I would have done it. I mean, there could have been a real good solid, teachable moment coming out of this. But anyway, so here we are now, congressional hearings and all. I'm Charles Ellison, your guest host for the Bill Press Show today. You can catch us at BillPressShow.com. At BP Show, we're going to be right back. I think we got, Tracey Ross coming in the next hour. Center for American Progress. She's at Tracey L. Ross. I'm at Ellison Report, and we'll be right back.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to the Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison. I love the beat, man. I love the drums. Catch us at BP Show, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We've got that clip of Hillary Clinton at the press conference talking about the email server and wiping it clean. Let's play that clip real quick.
You were the official in charge. Did you wipe the server?
What, like with a cloth or something?
I don't know. Well, you know how it works digitally. Did you try to wipe the whole server?
I don't know how it works digitally at all.
This is like, you're just taking her cloth out.
Yeah. Like with a cloth?
With a cloth, yeah.
I mean...
he's got real problems on this. He's probably got to brush up on that. So we got a great last hour coming up here at the Bill Press Show. We got Tracey Ross, Center for American Progress, going to talk about environmental racism. And then we got Julian Hattem, with The Hill. I'm sure he's going to be talking about cybersecurity issues, email later on down the line. So great show lined up. I'm Charles Ellison. Catch me at Ellison Report, but also catch us at BP Show, and we'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this, because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to The Bill Press Show. We are now in the final hour of Bill Press Show. We're live on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. Talker TV, right.
Watch us over at Talker.
Big ups to my Boston fam.
I'm the one from New England. I should be the one doing this. Talker. You get little talker.
Yeah, talker.
Well, check us out on Talker.
I don't know how Jamie feels when we do that, like when we're clowning on like the New England.
No, I think it's fine.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah, no,
okay.
you're shining lights on my
Probably
region.
the same way that my boys from Baltimore feel when I make fun of them.
Right. Yeah, Baltimore, like you know, the charm city. Accent.
Oh no!
Like what do you call that when because when you discriminate against somebody, it's like racism, right? But when you like clown on someone's accent, what is that? It's like accentism, or I don't know what that is.
Speechism.
Like, speechism.
Speechism.
Right. Yeah. Sorry for being so speechist, Jamie. You know, Jamie's like, man, this is so speechist.
I'm not offended.
Talking about. We're also at BP Show on Twitter. 866-557-7377 is the number if you'd like to call in. I'm sure a lot of you are out there driving, so just make sure you put on your like Bluetooth hands-free headsets, and if you're tweeting, please pull over. You shouldn't even be watching us on TV if you're like, but you can definitely call in 866-55-PRESS. I am your guest host, Charles Ellison, at Ellison Report as well, and we've got Tracey Ross now.
Thank you.
All right, we were talking about you like from the previous hour. We were like setting it up.
I know. I was
like,
sitting in the hallway. I could hear my name.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Like,
Tracey Ross. That's right.
You're
not in trouble.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're not in trouble or anything.
Tracey Ross. Come on, right. So and at Tracey L. Ross.
Yes, with an E.
Tracy with an E. Okay.
Yes.
All
Otherwise,
right.
it would be Tracky. That's what I tell people when they're like, "Why do you have an extra letter?"
Don't do Tracky. Yeah, don't do Tracky. Right. But you can track her down at Tracey L. Ross. She is the associate director of the Poverty to Prosperity program at the Center for American Progress. AmericanProgress.org is the website. Doing some great, fantastic work over there. So the reason I brought you in is because I had actually sourced you for a piece that I wrote earlier this week in theroot.com about environmental racism. Racism in the air you breathe. That is the title of it. And it kind of created a firestorm of discussion, which is good. That's what we want.
Absolutely.
So, and let's talk a little bit about that, about environmental racism, about that issue, because it's a very important issue, but we're not talking enough about it. I mean, well, first of all, let's get into how important is environmental racism, because we had a lot of discussion over the past year about Black Lives Matter and about how people of color are impacted by like racist violence. But there's something really exceptionally violent about environmental racism.
Sure. I think we should step back and define it a little bit, because I think people hear environmental racism and probably already are like, well, how is that? How is that possible? What does that mean? How can the environment discriminate against people? And really, what it comes down to is how we situate people in our communities. That African Americans in particular are disproportionately living in places that are harmful to their health, and that's by design. We've had a history of policies in this country that have made it so that the federal government has invested in the stability and strength of affluent white communities, while pushing low-income and African American and other communities of color into places that are hazardous for their health. So, for instance, African Americans disproportionately live near highways, disproportionately live near oil refineries, waste facilities. So even the title of your piece was spot on, because people of color are likely to inhale 38% more pollution than white people. And that's why we see, higher asthma rates amongst Black children. And so it really is about the way that we have engineered our communities to disproportionately harm people of color.
And how did that happen? I mean, have we looked at how that happened? Like how so many highways were built near Black neighborhoods or communities of color? How they end up like near airports and oil refineries? Have we looked at how did all that kind of happen? And how long has it been going on for?
Sure. Well, I would say, beginning in the 1930s, you have the practice of redlining. So that made it so that the best communities, African Americans could not access home loans or move into these communities. And so the federal government, like I was saying, invested in white communities and giving access to loans and being able to allow people to move out to the suburbs who are white, at the same time that they allowed localities to have the autonomy to basically move African Americans around however they wanted. So it might have been like, we're going to build housing projects in a poor part of town. As we're expanding the highway system during the 1950s, the highways, there's more you have more political power and more cachet when you're wealthier and when you are white in this country, especially in the 1950s. So when the highway expansion was going on, you could fight back against a highway coming into a nice neighborhood that's filled with white people, but there were plenty of businesses that African Americans owned, homes, all of these things that were essentially destroyed to have the highway system that we have today.
Interesting. Talking with Tracey Ross. She is Associate Director of the Poverty to Prosperity Program at Center for American Progress. Go to AmericanProgress.org for more information. At Tracey with an E, L Ross on Twitter. You can kind of keep up with what she's doing. We're talking about environmental racism today here on the Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison. Also sitting in the studio with me is Peter Ogburn. You see Peter all the time, every day. So I don't even need to say it's Peter Ogburn is in here. So, I'm just giving you props. But
I'm just letting y'all do your thing. The last thing I'm going to do is get involved in this, right?
So, Peter, have you been living near smokestacks?
Look, guys, the struggle is real.
So this is ongoing. We've been talking about this off and on the show. You're talking about this whole Sean King controversy.
But this, I think, is a really interesting topic to talk about because this gets back to something we were talking about earlier in the show about racism and what the president said when he was on that podcast. Is he said, racism isn't someone coming up and calling you the N-word. Right. Like that exists.
Yeah.
But. And a lot of people are going to face that and have to deal with that, but that's not the kind of racism that we're talking about.
Exactly.
It's stuff like this that people don't necessarily equate with racism, but if you really look at it, it's there.
Absolutely.
And that's a very good point. I mean, and Tracey, speak to that as far as like, okay, so the branding of environmental racism or how people are aware of it or what people, we just went into the definition of it. There's probably a lot of listeners out there that did, I didn't realize that, or, they're like, I went to my black friend's house the other day and it was like a highway right there.
Right.
but talk about how confused the public might be about environmental racism.
Right. And I think Peter's point was exactly right, because I think we like to think of racism as the boogeyman, so that we can all be like, yeah, I'm against that. I'm against the N-word. And
I'm not racist. I've never called someone the N-word.
Right, exactly. And part of that,
we're like, it's like that. We're like Louis C.K. now. You know that Louis C.K. bit about the N-word? Because we're thinking it.
Now you're forcing me to think it, Peter. You're putting it in my brain.
Peter.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry. White guy faux pas.
But I think with structural racism, people don't like talking about that, because then that means we're all complacent in something. I want to feel like a good person, but I feel like the average white family who lives in a nice neighborhood, that's not really their fault. They're just trying to live in a place that's good and healthy for their family. So I think that if I'm talking about environmental racism, I wouldn't want a white family to think that they're doing something wrong. I want to live in a nice neighborhood too. So it's that we've created systems and institutions that need to be changed. So I'm not for pushing out white families out of the suburbs.
There was that other discussion too, and I talked to Robert Bullard. Who's considered he's like the grandfather, godfather of environmental justice. Some people kind of say he spawned this environmental justice movement in the 80s. And he was making the point, he was very emphatic about this when I talked to him earlier for the piece. He was like, it's not about class, it's about race. Because he was saying, and I think you were saying too, where it's like, you could even get middle class black families still living in a situation like that. I got some personal experience with that as well. So they could be making like 50, 60 grand a year, black family, still live next to the oil refinery.
Absolutely.
And I mean, speak on that.
Yeah. So the sorts of policies that I described happening in the 30s and the 50s, now that we ended redlining, legal segregation.
Right.
It doesn't mean that everything, all of a sudden, we integrated all of these neighborhoods.
Right.
And so you still have the black families that were living in the worst neighborhoods are going to pass on their homes, if they're lucky enough to have one, to their children. And we know that 70% of all black people that live in the worst neighborhoods are the children and grandchildren of those that lived in similar neighborhoods 50 years ago. And I was going to say my favorite sociologist. Every girl has a favorite sociologist, but Patrick Sharkey at NYU. He's done amazing research on this, and he found that the average African American family making $100,000 a year lives in a more disadvantaged neighborhood than the average white family making $30,000 a year. And I think that just shows how poverty and racism is multi-generational.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's stunning.
Yeah. And actually, half of all black families in the country at some point in their lives have lived in the worst neighborhoods. And that's only true for about 7% of white people.
Interesting. We're talking with Tracey L. Ross at Tracey L. Ross. And also, Tracey, as far as going back to that, I wish we had. How much more time do we have, man? This is a fascinating.
You got a break. You got like 4 more minutes before a break. So you can keep rolling.
Okay, and thank you. Here at the Bill Press Show, BillPressShow.com.
Anytime.
One of my many
BP show. Yeah, right. It's good to know. There's a lot to talk about with respect to the issue, and so going back to that awareness, that branding. I mean, is it, whose fault is that? I mean, how come? Because this is like a big, massive Grim Reaper that's like wrapped around like entire communities of color. Like I saw somewhere, I think it was the NAACP report that came out a couple of years ago about the impact of environmental racism, about coal mining operations, and like the 12 of the top 20 worst coal mining or coal producing plants are near communities of color, near black communities. Like the majority of people that live near those plants are people of color, black people. And it's like, wow, I didn't realize how it. So it's like, if you could do a comparison between like environmental racism and like, killings from like corrupt, racist white cops. Like there's more people dying from environmental racism.
Sure.
But and not to make that comparison, but I mean, whose fault is that? That branding? I mean, is it the activist? I mean, is it mainstream media? Is it the public because they're like more interested in, seeing Kim Kardashian in like 1,000 different angles? I mean, what is that?
Well, it's definitely not the activists' fault.
Right.
I think that there's fortunately a lot of people on the ground doing some good work. I think placing blame is always complicated, but I think that it is incumbent upon the government to hold these sorts of, oil refineries and companies and all that accountable. So I know, actually, and this is probably a good example of these two groups I'm talking about, but in I think it was last year, some environmental groups filed a lawsuit on behalf of families in Texas, California, and Louisiana, families that lived near an oil refinery, and they filed suit, and it forced the EPA to basically create new regulations on what oil companies are refineries, how much pollution they're allowed to emit. But part of that, it'll require the EPA holding those oil refineries accountable because they'll pollute regardless. So I think that's a good example of that. There are people on the ground who are unsung heroes who are doing important work. Luckily, that story I first came across it in an NPR story, but I think radio and print will do a pretty good job, but a lot of people are watching television. You don't really see these sorts of stories in the media. So I think you're right to bring up the media. I think they need to be more invested in this issue, but it's going to come down to, the government and the companies themselves.
And there's a larger issue of like climate change and how like you had said this, and I quoted you about how there's this assumption that like natural disasters like those wildfires or like what happened with Hurricane Katrina. I did want to get to that because you wrote this very eloquent piece about the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina and aligning that with the Black Lives Matter movement. But you were saying that natural disasters are not the big equalizer the way we see them as. Explain that.
Right, yeah. So I think we see them as these equal opportunity forces of destruction that, we're all in this together, we're all going to get hit.
Right.
And I don't want to dismiss the tragedies that a lot of white families are still dealing with the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, from 2012. So they do wreak havoc on a lot of families, but the fact of the matter is that extreme weather events exacerbate the underlying, socioeconomic problems that we experience year round.
Right.
So if you're poor, you're going to be driven deeper into poverty. If you're disabled, you're going to have a hard time, evacuating or whatever the circumstances might be. So it really just does take your station in life and really hammer you into that place.
Got it. Oh, wow. Talking to Tracey Ross, Associate Director of the Poverty to Prosperity Program at the Center for American Progress, at Tracey with an E.L. Ross. You can also go to AmericanProgress.org for more information. Tracey, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Of course, no problem.
Follow us on Twitter at BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is The Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show. Every day, covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. We started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, We're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide. Reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To not look the other way. It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to the Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison, filling in for Bill Press. Got some big shoes to fill. Today we're heading into the last half hour. We still have Tracey Ross here in studio, Associate Director for the Poverty to Prosperity Program at the Center for American Progress at Tracey L. Ross. Tracey, thanks for hanging out with us for a couple more minutes. So
Absolutely.
You wrote this piece in Medium about, because we have the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina coming up. This is a big deal. And you proposing to sort of align that somewhat with what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the piece is entitled Remembering Katrina in the Black Lives Matter movement. Right. And I basically I lay out the fact that I think we saw on a very dramatic scale that in our greatest hour of need in 2005 for the families that were in the Gulf Coast, that Black lives did not matter. That we saw people who were vulnerable and needing to find food, and they were labeled as looters. And one of the most dramatic incidents of this that I retell in the piece is that on the Danziger Bridge, 7 police officers stormed the bridge and shot at I think about 6 people. 2 were killed. One was mentally disabled. One was a 19-year-old high school student. The others that were shot included 3 members of the Bartholomew family. The father was shot in the head. The daughter was shot in the abdomen, and the mother lost her arm because of the gun blast. And these were people that were looking for food. Yeah. And I think all the issues that we outlined earlier about how Black families are disproportionately in harm's way because of where they live. That's what happened during Katrina is that the lower Ninth Ward was by design a poor area for Black people, and even in desperation, we saw that the Bush administration did not act soon enough. We saw that law enforcement officials were quick to deem the victims criminals, and so I think it really lays out that. It was a perfect storm with with racism, segregation, environmental factors that made it that Black lives did not matter.
You can go to your Twitter feed at Tracey L. Ross to catch that piece. Tracey with an E. Right. We're going to be right back. Thanks so much for joining us, Tracey. We'll see you again. We're here at the Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host, Charles
This
Ellison. We'll be right back.
is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, the Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit everything.
Yeah, a little
It's
bit.
kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
And our sexy liberal army of callers calling every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
I've been at parties where, I had just left the party and, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, I heard that, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading.
For my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
on your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to The Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison, leading you in to this final half hour, 30 minutes of Bill Press. But alas, Bill Press is not here. He will be back. I'm just sitting in filling very large shoes. We are live on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. We're also seen on DirecTV and Dish. YouTube.com/TawkrTV at BP Show. And we still got time, fam. Call us 866-557-7377 or 866-55-PRESS. We got Peter, Jamie, Ray, Sip, the whole crew in here. You guys been doing a fantastic job as you always do. It really is a pleasure being in here. Got really my favorite tech policy writer. So I read your stuff all the time, Julian. I really do. Been doing that for a while now. At JM Hattem. Julian Hattem with The Hill. So great publication, thehill.com. And you write about, you're covering technology issues for The Hill.
Tech policy, national security policy.
We can't cover it enough, man, because it's like, I don't know, folks on Capitol Hill just do not know tech. And I don't know tech, but I know like folks on the Hill just don't know tech, which is kind of scary actually. So, and a lot going on as far as tech news. And we've talked about it earlier on in the show. We become sort of, there's this period of rediscovery of email. Like we suddenly realize, email is important with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and her, as a candidate, her troubles with email. So what's the update right now? Where are we right now with this email kerfuffle, whatever it is?
This fracas, kerfuffle, whatever you want to call it. So this has been, this is a thing that's been going on for a while now. It's come to light that I guess a couple of the emails that she not necessarily sent, but that she received through her inbox were classified, even though they were in this unclassified thing. And so there's been this slow drip of information about, things that she has done that seem not necessarily up to speed, not necessarily kosher. So these classified emails are the emails that contain classified information that were not marked as classified on her private server, which is now in the hands of the FBI, which presumably, they won't really talk to reporters, but presumably they're kind of going over that with a fine-tooth comb, seeing if there's anything wrong in there. And this has been like a very big political problem for the Hillary campaign. They've started pushing back on it. They have been really kind of left behind. They have not been out in front of this issue for a long time, and they're starting to change pace. Over the last couple of days, they've taken a slightly more aggressive attitude, but they still don't really have any good answers. They continue to say that this was a matter of convenience for her, and she just wasn't thinking about it. And so it's kind of increasingly the circle is increasing, and it's also drawing in some of her top aides.
It doesn't seem like the Clinton camp, they really don't know what this is all about.
I think they have
just
not had
as confused as we are.
They have not had a consistent narrative. They have not had a good answer for why this happened. I mean, I think the line yesterday, Jennifer Palmieri was on TV or something, and she said, there is no good answer. It was a mistake, and it was a huge mistake. And I think it touches on a lot of other issues. In part, it touches on differences between the State Department and the federal intelligence agencies, differences in what should be classified and what should not be classified. But, I mean, if I were a Democrat that would support the Hillary campaign, if I were a member of the Clinton campaign, I would very much be saying, like, come on, guys, get out in front of this, be more aggressive, get a line and stick to that line, and don't let that line be, I had no idea, who knew?
Yeah, exactly. Email. And, I mean, is it like, obviously, the Clinton campaign doesn't seem to have a handle on like the email issue, or seem to have an issue on like just digital stuff. I mean, she's got to brush up on that. Press conference didn't go so well. I mean, what was your perception?
Absolutely, I think there was this press conference, and she said, and she was asked, "Oh, did you wipe this server?" And she said, "Oh, like with a cloth? What do you mean?" And I think she was trying to be cute or something. I don't know what.
So she really didn't mean that.
Maybe she did mean it. I have no idea.
It was one of those I meant to do that moment.
It was one of those things that she didn't look like she was joking.
It didn't look like.
But at the same time, you can only assume.
I mean, she has to be joking. I can't imagine that.
Yeah,
it was a Romney joke, right? Where you're not sure if what she just said was so
I was not. No, that was in Iowa.
That was Iowa. That's right. Okay, good.
But yeah, I mean, they need to pick a line, and so the criminal stuff is kind of serious, but not super serious. But I think that the real problem is that for a lot of voters, this kind of reinforces the message that Hillary Clinton is a private person who plays by her own rules and is willing to bend those rules when it suits her needs. And that I think politically, the arguments that do the most damage are the ones that reinforce your own beliefs and your negative beliefs. And I think this is that in her situation.
So, I mean, what is classified? What's not classified? I mean, from what we know right now, I mean, did she put classified content or intel on that private server?
So this goes back to the disagreement between the agencies. So the State Department and the Clinton campaign say no. Nothing that she ever saw or reviewed or sent was classified at the time that she sent it or reviewed it. And the Inspector General for the 17 federal intelligence agencies says actually no, there was information that she didn't necessarily send, but that she received that was classified, meaning that it was based on what's called sources and methods. In this case, judging from they took a small sample, and of that small sample, they found a couple emails, one that contained information they said from signals intelligence, quote unquote, which is what the NSA does. So that's from emails and from phone calls and stuff like that, as well as from spy satellite stuff. And so, and the idea is, even if it wasn't classified at the time, it could have been classified retroactively. So if, some politician, if the NSA picks up some politician's phone call, then they become the president of France or whatever, right? Then that later might be deemed to be more important than it was 5 years ago.
And we're talking with Julian Hattem. He is staff writer for technology issues, technology policy at The Hill. Go to thehill.com. Just go to the tech section. It's like Julian owns that page. You can catch him at JM Hattem, or just once again, go to thehill.com. We're here on the Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison, at Ellison Report. But you can tweet us, this show, at BP Show. Or you can watch us, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Some of you may have gotten them from your ugly commute, and now you're sitting in front of a screen. So go to youtube.com/TawkrTV while you have your first cup of coffee at the office. And so while you're opening up your emails. So, hey, Julian, speaking of some politicians, this whole debacle is indicative of just the lack of understanding that our public officials, our legislators have regarding such ubiquitous things as email, just digital and technology issues in general. I mean, that's really kind of the big problem. That's the discussion we're not having right now.
Absolutely, that's part of it. I think certainly individual politicians, but also kind of writ large, these huge systems of whether it's federal agencies don't really understand how this federal IT stuff should work. I mean, this, we didn't really have email 15, 20 years ago, and there's the State Department, which manages thousands and thousands of people, has really had to get up to speed very, very quickly. And a lot of things have gotten lost in the shuffle, and a lot of individual people, especially politicians, especially long-term career appointees, might not necessarily know what they should be doing or what they shouldn't be doing. And I think the rules have kind of shifted under their feet, and people don't necessarily understand the ground rules and the way that they probably should.
I mean, this could be a really big teachable moment, I think. Sure. I'm a bit baffled that it's some smart folks over at the Clinton campaign. Sure. And I the way I would have kind of spun it, this is just my strategist cap one, make it into a big thing, a big platform, agenda item about cybersecurity. Sure. Why wasn't that done? Why not just say, you know what? Well, look at the way the government's being hacked these days. Wouldn't you put your stuff on a private server? If you were, you know what I mean? Spin it like that. Yeah. And then, kind of roll with it. How come that didn't happen?
I mean, honestly, I think they should spin it anyway, right? I mean, at this point, they just have had no response. And they just said, who knows? They've got that shruggy emoticon, I don't know. Weird.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this could be, and you talk about the OPM hack, you talk about, Ashley Madison, you talk about, anything that's happening. It seems like every other day there's some new hack, whether it's, from Russia or China or, anonymous, some internet advocacy group. And that's a thing that a lot of people don't necessarily understand what that means, what cybersecurity is, what it means to be hacked. Yeah. And so I think that certainly influences a lot of these discussions about Hillary Clinton's personal email behavior and recognizing what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, especially for government officials.
I mean, is that also part of, beyond the political reaction, it's also now this, and beyond the fascination, it's also people just really shocked or stunned, I guess, that our federal technology systems, our IT systems, are so porous.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, is that also a big part of this too?
Absolutely.
I mean, is that going to be the focus? Because we've got congressional hearings coming up. When are the hearings, actually, by the way?
So Hillary is supposed to testify in the Benghazi committee in October,
right?
Which the Benghazi committee, which has kind of launched this, and kind of turned it to somewhat of a political sideshow, but has had an impact on this issue.
Got it.
So she's testifying in October, and I mean, separately, there is a big cybersecurity bill in Congress, in the Senate that has been working its way through. And there was a lot of work to get it done right before the August recess. They were planning to rush it right through, but there's been a lot of privacy concerns about that. And the problem from privacy advocates like the ACLU is the concern that this bill, the idea is that it helps share information so that everyone knows there's no kind of weak spots or blind spots in Amazon's computer systems or the OPM's computer systems or whomever. And the concern is that in doing that, you end up giving all your information to the NSA or the government, and individuals' personal stuff gets thrown up to the government.
Got it.
So people like Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon, say that it's not a cybersecurity bill, it's a cyber surveillance bill, et cetera, et cetera. So that got held up by that.
I see. So the Benghazi committee is going to be the one that's going to talk about the email issue.
Sure.
It's kind of like, it's like Ken Starr from Whitewater to now we're at Monica Lewinsky. Like it's just like,
absolutely.
But I mean, if I were the Clinton campaign, I mean, I'd be pressing congressional Democrats. I'm just saying to hijack one of the cybersecurity bill hearings. Hey, why don't we go to this so we can talk about the larger issue of cybersecurity? Show up at one of those. I don't know. And I do want Ashley Madison. We got time, right? Or I think we're going into.
You got a break. Let's do this. Let's do the Ashley Madison stuff on the other side.
Yeah, I want to talk about Ashley Madison.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's huge. I know we're going to have a few chuckles about it, but it's actually a lot more serious.
No, it's very serious.
Yeah, it's very serious. And not for obvious reasons. But anyway, it's because it's a room full of men going to talk about Ashley Madison. We'll be right back at Bill Press Show. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison. We'll see you on the other side in a second.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
And online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to the final 12 minutes of the Bill Press Show here live on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV, which you can see on DirecTV and Dish. YouTube.com/TawkrTV. We're also on Twitter @BP Show. You're also at Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. We're also on your iHeart Radio app. It's been a great show. I'm your guest host, Charles Ellison, filling in for Bill Press. We've got in studio with us Julian Hattem, at JM Hattem. Check him out. He's a staff writer covering technology for The Hill. Great publication, been around for a long time, thehill.com. Point of disclosure, I'm occasionally writing for The Hill now and having a great time with it. And we've been talking about email, talking about Hillary Clinton's email, but that's also, that conversation has metastasized into a larger discussion about cybersecurity. And now we're talking a lot about hacking these days. And people are just still trying to wrap their arms around this. We've got the Ashley Madison.
Yeah.
This is wild. And
it is wild.
I mean,
yeah.
it is. But I mean, beyond the chuckles about who's going to get caught, there's some serious kind of national digital security issues.
Oh,
here,
absolutely,
right,
absolutely. And I mean, I think for a lot of people, there is something kind of like haha, funny about cheaters are getting caught. For those who don't know, Ashley Madison's a website where you would go up and say, I want to find someone to cheat on my wife with. Yeah. But I mean, there's both in terms of national security and in terms of just kind of what it means in terms of computer security writ large. I think we've kind of crossed a Rubicon. I mean, because for whatever you think of people that were on this site, this was a legal website. Maybe they were totally fine. I mean, and it's kind of funny to say Ashley Madison, but it could have been a porn website. It could have been Amazon. It could have been Tinder. And I think that this is the first time that for a lot of just regular Joe Schmoes, their personal private information is getting spilled on the internet. Yeah. I mean, in the past when Target got hacked or even Sony got hacked, it didn't affect me. It affected my bank maybe. And I got some free credit monitoring. But now, if I were on this website or some other similar website, and, now my password's exposed, my credit card information, Social Security, whatever is out there. And so that's kind of scary in one regards, but also kind of in terms of national security. Right. I mean, it's, there are military people, there are members of the government up here, there are most likely, American spies probably that are on this website. And, it's probably dumb of them to have done this. But people think that the internet is probably pretty safe and that if you go to a website that says that they are secure and safe, that you trust them and that you will use maybe your personal email or your work email or,
That's one of the things that I keep coming back to on this story is it's not just that they have access to all of your private information, but also your private desires.
Your fantasies.
Right? That is enough to, if you were using that site, would probably freak you out. To have other people read. And so, I mean, Facebook is one thing because, they know more about you than, the government knows about you. But it's stuff that you want to put out there.
Yeah, it's public. Everything you put on Facebook is public.
Yeah, it's contextual privacy.
Yeah, exactly.
Contextual and consensual privacy. Pretty much. Yeah. But, and I'm wondering if, with Ashley Madison, I mean, how much, what do we know about the motivations of the hackers? I mean, is there anything that the folks that have hacked Ashley Madison? Because I don't feel like there's this kind of moral dimension to it. I think that there's something else going on here. I mean, are they trying to leverage something? I mean, are they trying, because they feel there's probably a lot of major, grass tops kind of folks that are utilizing Ashley Madison, military, government, Wall Street. Do we know what the motivations are of these hackers?
I mean, not necessarily. I'm sure there are a number of competing motivations. It's just kind of general shame of the people show they can do it, kind of embarrassment. But I mean, that's kind of, the thing is it doesn't even matter, right? Whatever their motivations are, that this is the thing that's possible, that you can just kind of reveal, millions or thousands of people's information is scary and kind of exposes,
Mr. Robot-like revenge.
Yeah, exactly.
For Occupy Wall Street for clowning it and everything. Okay, we'll get you. Ashley Madison.
Try and turn these people who they think are, presumably kind of hypocrites or morally indefensible or whatever they might say.
For everybody who thinks oh, shame on these people for going on this website and all that stuff. Just remember that, like you said, there are a lot of other websites that if they got hacked, we would learn about a lot of other people who weren't going on this particular website.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, do we know what kind of damage has already been done? Well, I guess
outside of individual.
I mean, have you been talking to sources inside the government who are like worried about this hack, and not because they feel like, oh, one of our officials or one of our generals has been utilizing, but they're worried about the larger national security ramifications of it?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, outside of individual kind of marriages and stuff, there is kind of broader damage in terms of who else is looking at this? If I were in the Chinese government right now, I would absolutely be going through the Ashley Madison list to see if there's anyone who happens to show up on the OPM, the Office of Personnel Management list, and see is there any government employee who also was on Ashley Madison, and kind of just cross-referencing all of these lists to see if there's any military officials or top Wall Street people or top private sector, whether it's Wall Street or whatever in the government or in corporations. If you can, dig up any dirt on these people, if you can do any kind of honeypots and, what's called spearfishing, get some information from them, that's a big asset for you, absolutely.
Got it. We're talking with Julian Hattem, staff writer covering technology for The Hill, hill.com. We'll be right back here on The Bill Press Show. Charles Ellison, I'm your guest host at BP Show during the break.
Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, welcome back to the Bill Press Show. This is guest host Charles Ellison filling in for Bill Press. We're in the last few minutes of Bill Press Show at BP Show. Talk to us. I'm at Ellison Report, by the way. I am the contributing editor for TheRoot.com. And we've been hanging out here. Thanks again, Peter.
Doing a great job, man. I'm so glad you come in.
Sip, just fantastic. Can't wait to see you guys the next time. And also youtube.com/TawkrTV. Real last question here as far as the Ashley Madison episode. We're here with Julian Hattem with The Hill. Go to @JMHattem. I mean, as far as like, it seems like, how come like China and Russia don't have these kinds of issues like we do? Like, right? As far as cybersecurity.
I think they do a little bit, right? But I think, on the one hand, we are not maybe as aggressive, we might say, as China or Russia are, and like we're not kind of digging as much. But, we invented all this stuff, right? We have Silicon Valley, they don't.
Exactly. Julian Hattem, I'm Charles Ellison, Peter Ogburn, Jamie Benson, Ray Rogers, Cyprian Bolden. Thanks so much. See you next time. We're here at the Bill Press Show.
This is the Bill Press Show.